computer. Hey there, and welcome to Hack Your Biology, where we are discussing how to uncover your genetic makeup and rebalance your body at a cellular level so you can live life at your full potential. My name is Stephanie Grosvenor. I'm your host, and joining us right now is Joe Cohen. Joe won the genetic lottery of bad genes. As a kid, he suffered from inflammation, brain fog, fatigue, digestive issues, anxiety, depression, and a host of other issues that were poorly understood in both conventional and alternative medicine. Frustrated by the lack of good information and tools, Joe decided to embark on a journey of self-experimentation and self-learning to improve his health, something that has since become known as biohacking. After creating the Biohacker's Ultimate Resource website called Self-Hacked, Joe moved on to found Self Decode, the ultimate biotech software platform for DNA and lab-based health recommendations. Joe has helped thousands of people take their health into their own hands with holistic and natural recommendations based on their own health DNA. Joe, good morning. Thank you so much for being on the show with us and generously offering up your time and knowledge with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I absolutely love what you guys are doing at Self Decode, and it was so important for me to highlight you on this event. And I must say, one of the reasons why I really enjoy what you guys are doing is it's such a cool time for us to be alive and learning about our health. Like, genetic testing has never been more available, more affordable for like the everyday person. And you know, thinking back maybe 10, 20 years, genetic testing was not something that was available to the everyday person. It was like for scientists and researchers and that kind of thing. So it's just so cool how you've really brought this to, made it so available for everybody.
Yeah, I think the key is that everybody should have access to their genetic data and the ability to analyze that in order to improve their health and, you know, empower their biology, empower themselves to take over, to improve their health and improve their lives based on, you know, their data.
Definitely. So tell us more about that. Like, what is really the value in knowing what your genetic makeup is, your genetic profile, instead of just, you know, eating right and exercising a bit more? Like, why should people be looking into genetic testing?
So I can explain it more broadly, and then I could go into exactly how you can use genetics. But more broadly, your DNA is involved in everything that your body does, right? I mean, everything that your body does is one way or another controlled or influenced by your DNA. How your body responds to the environment is obviously controlled by your DNA. And so, you know, you have these environmental signals, of course, but then your DNA is saying how you respond to the environment. Now, these you know, you want to give it the right signals for your DNA. That's kind of where knowing your DNA, you can help understand what kind of things you need to do to be in good balance, right? So there's, you know, you need to know your DNA, and then you need to know how the things in the environment, the things that you're doing, whether it's lifestyle, supplements, diet, how they interact with your DNA, and what makes the most sense based on you individually, right? And so what's important to understand about DNA is that you can't only look at DNA. You want to look at, you know, your environmental factors. You want to look at your lab tests. You want to look at your genetic predispositions, and then, but based on that, you want to like look at recommendations that you can get from all these different areas, whether it's your lab results or your DNA. It's really the umbrella is precision health, right? And genetics is a very big part of precision health. It's not the only part, but it's a very big part of it. And I think when, you know, genetics can get very overwhelming because an individual, you know, individuals who are aware of the term SNP, which is a single change in the DNA, single point change, there's 300 million of these single point changes that exist in the DNA. Yeah. Meaning not every person has 300 million, but among the whole population, there's 300, the global population, there's 300 million changes. or and then as you get smaller amounts, they're more and more common. But there's 100, let's say 200 million of those, only like 1 people have, right? It's just kind of like these mutations. But in any case, what's overwhelming is that you really need a big data approach when you're looking at DNA, because there's too many variants to look at to really make sense of it. And so people who are hunting for finding the information that's relevant for you is very difficult when you have so many variants. And so there's 2 approaches that you want to take. Number one is, when you're doing like predispositions, you want to look at many variants, thousands or millions. And that involves a big data and AI approach. And that's something that, for example, we at Self Decode do, whereas the other companies are not doing. So, you want to look at how many variants a company is analyzing. And so, generally people do these genotyping files where they sequence about 700,000 variants. But what we do is we convert it into the full list of variants, 83 million variants. Yeah, and then we do the analysis on that full list, rather than what a lot of companies do, and this is something you should be careful about, is they'll just test maybe less than 100 variants, in which case you can't really, based on that, you can't actually extrapolate what your other variants are. Yes. So you're only looking at a very few number of variants, and you really can't tell that much from a small number of variants. So I think it's important to understand that you need software and tools to be able to help people understand what's going on, because it's just impossible just to like look at a spreadsheet or look at very simplistic tools that are telling you, this is your risk because you have 1 variant or something like that. That's very simplistic. So, genetics is a little bit difficult to explain without showing you how you can, you can use it. So I'll give you an example here.
And I just want to touch on that, Joe. One of the things I love about Self Decode is the comprehensive reports that you guys offer, because you're so right with what you're saying. If you're only looking at or identifying 1 variant, but you're not looking at the whole database that's available and what other things come into play, you can't really do much with that information. And I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, I did my first sort of genetic test, and it wasn't very comprehensive. And, we picked up a SMP, but that's what I was told. The report that was given was very, very complicated. It was very sort of clinical based. So the everyday person, even myself being in medicine, I wasn't able to really understand what was being shared with me. And I knew I had this SMP, this SNP, and that was about it. So good, I know it's there, but what do I do about it? Like what are the next steps? And I ended up having to, investigate and find different medical webinars and start to learn myself into, okay, well, what are my next steps? And the testing was expensive. I think I paid about $450 at the time to learn. I've got, this 1 SMP and not really know much of what I can do with that information. So having that extensive data to analyze, to really pick up not just 1 area, but multiple areas, and then know exactly what it is you need to do about it is really, really powerful. And you guys have like nailed it with that aspect.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I think it is a very tough challenge to do. And I think we have a great team and we've executed it really well, but it's actually much, much tougher than people would ever imagine. It requires a lot of different things that you need to put together. And so what most companies do is they just choose the simplistic route, which is analyzing a few variants. Anybody could do that, right? You just, it's very easy to do that, right? You could do that. You don't even need software. If you're analyzing like, 50 variants, is very simple. But so the real approach is the big data approach. So here's like a body where we highlight certain kind of risks. You can see brain is where this is highlighted, heart and blood vessels. We've got skin here. And so you could see, for example, here's my genetic predispositions for these reports. And then I also have these labs that are higher, these are out of the optimal range here.
So, Joe, sorry to interrupt. For the audience watching, in case they are not familiar, when you say genetic predispositions, what are you referring to? What does that mean? Why is that important?
Genetic predisposition. So I'll explain. A genetic predisposition is basically how much your genetics is predisposing you to something, right? And that's kind of just getting a general idea. If you have a low genetic predisposition, it could be something more environmental, right? Or it's possible like we're just not picking it up because we're looking at there's kind of like a whole other as even if we look at a million variants, there's actually still other kinds of variants that we're not looking at every single variant. But essentially most of the time, if the direction is going to be correct, and then if you're like low in a certain predisposition, then you're going to be you might want to look at certain environmental variables and things like that. So that's kind of where the predisposition comes in. And I think it's just interesting to know. So if we look at, let's say, IBD, we say, it says, okay, this is like an example report. We have, 100 reports here on a whole bunch of different topics. People could pick based on the topic. So people, let's say like brain, gut health is a popular topic amongst your audience. And you could see there's different topics there related to gut, and then there's the brain. I have these are my brain risks here. So there's some risks here related.
So that would mean you're more likely to be exposed or to be affected by anxiety, stress.
Correct.
That's what this is showing.
Correct. There's more risk related to it. Yeah.
And
so more likely to experience.
When we know that we are predisposed or we're at higher risk for developing anxiety or maybe gut inflammation or whatever the case is, we're able to put very specific lifestyle factors in place to combat that, to start to influence our genetic makeup in a positive way. So it's not just let the cards fall where they may. This is my unlucky, how do I say it? Like unlucky with the genes that I was given. When we know what we are predisposed to, we're able to really be very intentional about how we live our life to influence our genes in the most positive way.
Exactly. So when it comes to influencing, so first, the way to look for at genetics is you first want to look at the issue that you're dealing with. You don't want to start with going down rabbit holes with SNPs if you don't. You really first need to understand, what am I trying to improve? What am I trying to balance? What am I trying to optimize? You find that topic. And so let's say gut inflammation, I know is popular with your audience. We look at this and it says, okay, so we looked at 43,000 variants and it puts me in the 76th percentile of genetic predisposition out of the population that we're looking at, right?
Okay.
And then it goes to, what can you do, right? Here are the things that you can do. So then, you could, let's say it'll say avoid food triggers. You could click on any one of these. It goes to more information of,
amazing.
Yeah. So we have, so let's say it'll say something like this, right? So mushrooms may worsen the symptoms of Crohn's disease in people with my genetic variant, right? So that's something, certain, let's say if we go up here, we could say, let's say avoiding cigarette smoke. Obviously it's bad for everybody, but we could say that cigarette smoke is a higher risk for Crohn's disease. They have more flare-ups. But then I have 3 genes here that put me at higher risk of Crohn's if I were to smoke. See,
Wow.
and it shows a specific variance right
Mm-hmm.
here. So, and it shows the evidence for each variant that is putting me. Now, you could click on these pages and find out more information about the genes and SNPs. But if you're not, if you don't want to, like, you don't have to do that. You could just say, okay, I've got these genetic variants. And then, you could also hide recommendations too, right? So anytime you hide a recommendation, the next one is going to show up. So you see, it just keeps on showing up more and more recommendations. So the thing with genetics is that we're prioritizing the recommendations for you, and then you could see which ones with you or your coach or your doctor, which ones you want to do. But essentially, we're telling you what the impact and the evidence levels are like. And then we tell you which genes are interacting, that it might help more because you have a certain variant, right? And
I love that you guys prioritize it in this way. That's why, like, I run the 12-month mentorship program, and Self Decode's a big part of that. We incorporate this genetic testing and these functional labs into the program. And like you say, it can be quite overwhelming when you get all this information and you're like, well, there's so much on here. What do I need to do? So the fact that you guys prioritize it in such a easy to follow way is really, really cool. And that's why we've made it such a big part of Health Gap, because by getting this information, myself and my wellness team as a coach are then able to help clients implement these things and adjust it where it's working, when it's not working, for their lifestyle sort of thing. Just to give you the best possible outcome going forward, and to make this easy enough to incorporate into your life without feeling overwhelmed, without feeling confused.
Exactly. And so that's why we also have here, like, you have your top 5 recommendations. You could click on details. You can hide one, and then the next one is going to show up, just so you're not overwhelmed here, right? And so these are prioritized based on your genetics, based on the level of evidence in the scientific literature, based on the general impact. You can see I have 4 hidden recommendations from the list. And so, and the other thing is, we have, so we're building out, bunch of different reports. Like, for example, if we look at this, let's say this is a gout report, not necessarily a big topic, but let's go. I mean, we could check out this anxiety one. So
huge topic.
You could see that.
Huge topic.
Yeah, anxiety is huge. So in this case, it shows me that I have increased likelihood of anxiety. Okay. And we looked at 807,000 variants, and it says your lifestyle might be decreasing your risk of anxiety. So obviously I'm doing things to lower the risk, and and that's where these kind of lifestyle assessments come in as well. You could see here I've taken some lifestyle assessments, and they all show that I, mainly except for gout, that I have reduced risk, which means that, even if my genetic risk is higher, there's ways to reduce the risk. And
so how
especially,
do you do this lifestyle analysis? Is that when people register a profile, is it like a questionnaire that they do, or is it also
correct,
through the testing?
It's when they register, you can fill out questionnaires, and then they give you assessments for each one. So let's say here's my, we also have labs. So if you look at gout one, for example, this is one where I have my lifestyle might be increasing my risk of gout, but it shows I have here's my genetics of, like, where I am in the genetics. I have one optimal lab result related to gout. I can click on this. It shows me uric acid levels. It's at an optimal level. My lifestyle assessments, I can go here. It takes me to, this is like a lifestyle assessment that I've done. And then, basically, like, it explains which of the questions I answered that were increasing my risk of gout, right? And here's,
Oh.
it goes back to my report. But in any case, so that's kind of where we think that combining genetics with labs and lifestyle is important, because people are like, okay, this is my genetics, but what about my lifestyle risk? What about my lab results? So you can see here, irritable bowel, genetic risk, and here's my lifestyle risk, right?
And that's so
and
good
then
to
each
see, because then you can see exactly what is it that I'm currently doing that's working for me that I can continue with, and what is it that's not serving me, that's not contributing to feeling better, and how can I start to shift that?
right, exactly. And then you have the prioritized list of recommendations that you see, okay, so stress reduction may be more effective at improving IBS in people with my gene variant, right? And you could follow this and get more information on that. So there's a lot of stuff. And then you could add things to a regimen. Let's say I want to say probiotics, add to my regimen. And so here's my regimen. Say, let's see, this is, so it shows all the things I put on my regimen.
Amazing.
And it shows, what kind of, if you're working with a practitioner, we have a practitioner platform as well. They could, you could set the dosages, frequency, duration, and everything could be downloaded as reports as well. So everything, all the PDFs could be generated. They could also be customized. So when you download any report, you could choose which sections you want in it. You want to include lab results, risk assessments.
Which is really helpful, because some people love that detailed information, more sort of analytical people, and others feel a bit overwhelmed. They just want, like,
correct,
straight to the point. This is what I want to follow. I don't want anything extra. So being able to customize your report in so much detail is fantastic.
Yeah. So what genetics, as you could see, what genetics is doing here, just on a general level, it's allowing people to look at their predispositions. It's allowing people to get a list of recommendations that's prioritized for them. And then they could see how that how their genetics influences that recommendation. Without genetics, that's not possible, right? How are you going to know the prioritized list? Now, we also have recommendations based on lab results, and based on, let's say if I uploaded my lab results here as well, of course. And for example, let's say it shows me which labs related to heart health that might be suboptimal. So it shows my LDL cholesterol is not in the optimal range. I would just click on this. It takes me here, and it shows me graphs that I can track my LDL cholesterol. And then it shows, basically.
For the audience watching, can they order labs through Self Decode, or do they just
in the US? Yeah,
in
the US. So they can order a genetic kit, and then they can order a lab test. And you can see, so all these kinds of recommendations, you can add them to a regimen. And then when you have a regimen, let's say you put together a regimen, you're like, I forgot why I added this. You just click on here, and it says, helping you address H. pylori and high cholesterol, high LDL cholesterol, right? And it also helps with these things, right? It also tells you. So, this is like a super tool. It's not just. That's why it's very hard to explain what we do. You just have to see it. It's like you see, wow, oh, black seed. Oh, it also helps with these things.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. I can, my practitioner can set the dosage for me, and you could download a report for your client to show them, hey, here's exactly what you should be doing, and they get the full report and why they should be doing it, and in a PDF format. And so it's like a very complete picture, right? You could be looking through recommendations from your lab tests, from your risk assessments, and through your different genetic reports, put together a regimen, and then see exactly why those things are important for you. So you could see vitamin D. It's helping me.
it really takes the guesswork out of everything. You're not thinking, should I be doing keto? Should I be doing Mediterranean? Should I be taking
Correct.
probiotics? Like,
Exactly.
The guesswork's taken out of it completely, and you save yourself so much time and so much money by knowing from the beginning, this is what I need to do, spending some time, incorporating that into your lifestyle, and just every single day starting to see these improvements. And I honestly feel like 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, depending what you're dealing with, you feel like a completely new person, and really just healthier and happier than you've ever been in your life, because you are living for your genetics. You are adjusting your lifestyle in a way that really works for you. There's no guesswork.
Exactly. It's, I mean, when you don't have your personalized data, like your genetics, there's tons of guesswork at play. Yeah. And it's really overwhelming. I mean, we're providing you all the information that's targeted for you, right? So helping you address this. And by the way, this also helps with all these things. This is vitamin D, obviously, it helps with a lot of stuff, but, and you can get everything, your genetics, your lab tests, all in one spot. And there's a reason why we got a 4.9 Trustpilot review.
Wow.
People really love this stuff. And also we have some fun things as well. So for example, here's traits, you could see like problem solving, happiness, irritability,
very cool.
Risk taking, more likely. This is pretty true. Sweet tooth, less likely. Introvert, more secure, open to new experiences, carefree. It's kind of just like a fun things you could do.
Yeah.
In different areas. And then, there's more health and wellness in different topics. You could see sleep, diet, nutrition, metabolic health, immune function, kidneys, respiratory, blood.
So these are all the individual reports that people can get their hands on.
No, these are the topics.
These are the topics. Okay. In your report.
These are the topics. You click on a topic and then you get the report. So let's say pain and fatigue. You got back pain, joint pain. Each one of these is like a full-fledged report with recommendations.
Amazing.
And you can look at the full report. Chronic pain. Okay, I'm a higher risk at this one. And you could look at the full report, right? So we looked at 622,000 variants. I'm the 81st percentile. We also, by the way, take into account a deep ancestry, which nobody else does when they do these predispositions. And then you get all the details here. So, it's really like, it's there's so much information. And again, if you don't want to go through all that, the idea is you want to look for the specific thing that you're dealing with, right? So if you're dealing with gut inflammation, you don't have to look at back pain, the back pain report. That's why we separated it in this way, so that you could find the things that you're specifically interested in. You upload your labs, and again, you upload your labs, it's automatically going to show in your dashboard where the issues are. And so if you have gut health, you're going to see, okay, what are my predispositions over here? What are my labs related to this? Okay, right? It takes the guesswork, it takes the mental drain away from, and you could go in as deep as you want or as shallow as you want. And if you need help with a practitioner, we have practitioner platforms that can use it and guide the person through this as well.
And tell me, if I'm not mistaken, even if clients are not, or the audience is not ordering lab work through Self Decode, but they have done lab work in the past, they're able to just upload it to their client portal. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, they can input labs. So we have a lab section here. It shows you can input labs, and these are my results. You could shop labs. So there's different here. Drag and drop your lab tests here, or you can put in some results manually. But you could just upload the PDF.
Fantastic.
Upload lab results, image or PDF format. And yeah, I mean, here's like some of my lab results, and it's showing by default the ones that are out of the optimal range that come up first. And then you could click on any one of these and get more information. So it's really, you know, I built a tool that I was like, okay, I want a one-stop shop, you know, software tool that's going to analyze all of my data, track it, and tell me what I need to do. Because, you know, when I was doing health consults, I was doing a lot of health consults. It was just so hard for people to really wrap their head around what the hell is going on with them. What do they need to look at? Where do they need to start first? And so my mission is to make, you know, is to empower people so they don't have to, you know, for pretty cheap, is to look at their own health, and, you know, and be able to improve their health based on target.
Oh, did I lose you? Are you back?
No, I'm here.
Oh, fantastic. It broke up for a sec. No, you're so right. It really is a one-stop shop. And I couldn't agree with you more, because you really have made this affordable. As I mentioned earlier, when I did genetic testing 4.5 years ago or so, it cost me like $450, and it wasn't even a full genetic panel. It didn't have any of the labs. It didn't show me my full genetic makeup. It was just picking up those 1 or 2 SNPs. And there was no lifestyle report or advice given with that. And, you know, so what you're getting, the value for money now, is unbelievable when we look at doing it through a company like yours.
Exactly. It's I think it's a no-brainer. And, you know, we've been less focused on marketing the product as much as we have building it. And because, you know, it was quite complex to build, but at this point, I think it's, you know, I mean, it speaks for itself in terms of like what we built here.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about the future and the fact that I can empower people to, you know, take advantage and to improve their health. That's what excites me.
Oh, 1000%. And tell us, Joe, for the audience listening, maybe they're looking at this and like, this is incredible. I've got to get my hands on a test, but, you know, where do I do it? Do I have to go get blood work done? Like, you know, what does this look like? Can you tell the audience a little bit about how they can go about getting this test, or what the genetic test, the process would be?
Yeah, so it's actually quite simple. You just go to selfdecode.com. You just order a test kit. It comes to your house. You spit in the tube. You send it back in a prepaid shipment label. You get your results, you know, 4 weeks later, 6 weeks later, and you just, you know, and before then you could start using the lab analyzer. You could upload lab results from anywhere in the world that you got them from the past 10 years or whatever. Or you can buy new ones from the site if you're in the US. And so it's pretty simple to just start using it. And you could start with filling out some risk assessments and see what your lifestyle risk is like. We do have a 20% discount code for you.
Yes, there will be a link dropped into the chat here where you can access reports and your subscription service and everything, and it will also be sent in an email to you. So we've got a code HYB 2022 or Hack Your Biology 2022. And when you use that link with your first purchase, either of the subscription or the different reports, you will be getting 20% off. So I encourage you guys to go check out the platform, use the link, and don't wait. Like, take the guesswork out of how to be healthy. And Joe, as you said, like, it's ridiculously easy. It's so non-invasive. Place your order, you get the kit. It's a quick swab, saliva swab, sending it off. As you mentioned, it's a prepaid label. So you send it off, and 4 to 6 weeks later, there's your results. Like, it couldn't be easier.
I should mention, if someone already got their genetics tested, they could just upload that file. But you can't do it if it's just like, it needs to be one of those chips that's like, you know, either there's our chip, 23andMe, Ancestry, something that is testing in the hundreds of thousands of variants, not something that's testing, it could be whole genome. Whatever file you have is good. But if you're uploading something that like tested 100 or 1,000 SNPs, it's just not going to be It's not going to be meaningful, to be
Yeah.
honest. You want to, I would get a new test and, and do it right. And so one test, you're going to get 83 million variants. And, I mean, it's the, again, like you said, for a bunch of years ago, 4 years ago, you paid $450 for one variant. And by the way, the medical establishment does charge you for like looking at a couple variants. They'll charge you anything that's medical. It's going to be like thousands of dollars. But here you're getting 83 million variants for quite cheap, under under $100. It's a no-brainer. And then the platform itself is just there's nothing even close to it.
No, it's so comprehensive. It's very comprehensive and well-rounded, yet very simple to understand. It's very user-friendly.
The content is also all written on an 8th grade level, so we made sure to make it. The whole thing is very accessible. It's not easy to do, which is the reason why other companies haven't done it. It's just when I do something, I like to do it right. Also, the polygenetic risk scoring, there's no direct consumer company that does legitimate polygenetic risk scoring in the way that we do it, looking at mass amounts of data. We're really the only game in town. I mean, we are white labeling and licensing our technology to other players, because basically what happened is I looked around at the consumer market and I was trying to hire, very specialized expertises in bioinformatics. And something that struck me was that none of the companies, the 100 companies that I looked at, had anybody in bioinformatics on their team that was capable of doing the types of analysis that you need to do. Whereas, we have a whole bunch of scientists, data scientists in bioinformatics. I was like, so how are these companies doing it? The answer is they weren't, right? They're doing something very simple. It's not legitimate. And so after that, we decided that, we're going to sell this to the consumers. We're going to sell it to practitioners. And we're also, any company that wants to do legitimate science, they can use our engine to do that. But a lot of companies don't care though. So they just, they're because it's cheaper to just do whatever.
What's important, what I really want to note with you guys as well, for the people listening today, is that you guys do have the confidentiality stuff in place. So everything, all the testing, all the data, it's very confidential, right?
Correct. Yes.
Because I know and a lot of people don't know this, and I'm not going to mention names. I don't want to get myself into trouble here, but there's a couple well-known genetic companies that tend to sell data to insurance companies and things like that.
Right. And there's also other ones that you actually, I don't know if you're aware of, they send the data to China. There's actually quite a few of them.
And it's scary. It's very scary. And I just want to be very clear with everybody listening, because I know it is a concern that is a non-issue with Self Decode. Like, you can really feel peace of mind and confidence that whatever data you're supplying, whatever information you're supplying, it is confidential and it's secure. So you don't have those worries in the back of your mind. In my experience, that has been one of the things that have stopped people in the past from getting genetically or their genetics tested. So just put in mind of everybody to know that that's not an issue.
We've implemented the HIPAA standards and other standards that are not in HIPAA. We're going for high trust certification, which is something that companies don't do. Even big companies like 23andMe. And the other thing is we're investing a lot in security, privacy, and just all around. We're an extremely effective organization. And I think that you want to be careful because this is an industry where it's easy to screw up in every way possible, right? You could screw up in, the science is extremely easy to screw up, right? You really, people don't understand how complex it is to actually do these the polygenetic risk scores correctly. And just to give you an example, like, so first of all, you need to process files correctly, which is a challenge, and companies don't know how to do that. Then you have to do what's called imputation, which is predict what all the other variants are, because you can't just look at 750,000 variants. There's too many missing SNPs that you can't look at. So we have a cutting edge imputation model, which we look at 83 million variants with a 99.7% accuracy, which is better than the chip itself, right? So it's the most advanced imputation on the market. Then after that, what you need to do is you need to look at people's ancestry. And one way to look at how crappy a company is to look at their ancestry. So there's a reason the only companies that have good ancestry is Ancestry and 23andMe. Every other company is basically complete crap. I know because I've used them. And it'll tell me I'm like from South America or something. I have no idea where, and I'm 100% Ashkenazic Jewish, right? So it's just completely wrong. Tell me like I'm 90% Liberian, or I don't know, 20% Liberian or something. I have no idea what they're even saying. So you could see based on the ancestry how inaccurate it is, number one, and all these services are very inaccurate. So we're actually going to be releasing an ancestry that's going to be quite robust, as accurate as 23andMe. And that's actually an accomplishment because they have way more data. So our algorithms are much better. But you need to look at a person's ancestry when you get a predisposition, because based on every ancestry has a different predisposition. Even with the same variants, right? So there's different risks. Then you need to analyze all those variants. Like you need to look at millions of variants, and that means you need to take a big data approach. You also need to know how to compress genome data very well, because you're getting loads of data now. Since everyone has 83 million variants, you're getting loads of data. You need very good data engineers. You need very good security engineers. You need the whole thing, like DevOps. You really need to, and then the science, and then goes to the reporting and the recommendations and all these different things.
Process.
And then and so I look at companies in the space, and they have like 3 people working for the company, or 5 people. None of them are scientists, or there's 1 scientist. There's no way that this person even has a specialty. And so that's kind of why I think it's very easy to just show like a picture of somebody with a lab coat and be like trust us, but it's extremely complex, and it's just the companies out there are doing very, very shady stuff. They're sending your data to China to get it cheaper. That's how the certain companies have a whole genome for a low price, because they send it to China. But then so the Chinese government basically owns it, more or less. And they're testing a very small number of variants. And the whole thing is not legitimate. So there's a lot of crap out there that people need to be very wary of. Definitely.
But at least we know Self Decode is a very high quality. It's like you say, a one-stop shop, very trusted, all HIPAA compliant, all that kind of thing. So nobody has to worry about any of that with you guys. And that's why it's one of the companies that I include in Health Gap. It's trusted. You guys just do an incredible job. So for everybody watching, make sure you use the link, get your 20% off. You will not regret it. Joe, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. It's been fantastic to have you here with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.